Today on VOA Weekly, patrolling the U.S. border with Mexico, on the river, and in the desert. Digging deep in one of the coldest places on Earth, looking for clues to why the planet is heating up. Animating empowerment to help girls take control of their own lives.
New restrictions for travel to the United States are being put in place for people from 8 countries. The order by the Trump administration replaces a similar one that expired September 24th.
Back in January, President Trump first imposed a travel ban from 7 Muslim-majority countries: Syria, Iran, Iraq, Libya, Sudan, Somalia, and Yemen.
Implementing that order was delayed by legal challenges, questioning its constitutionality on the grounds it was targeting countries based on religion.
In June, the Supreme Court allowed the travel ban to be implemented, but stipulated people from banned countries could enter if they had family in the United States.
Of the original 7 countries, Iraq was removed from the list in March, deemed to be in a close cooperative relationship with the U.S. Now, Sudan has been dropped for similar reasons.
But Chad has been added because it is said to be home of active terrorist groups. The remaining countries are on the travel restriction list due to inadequate information sharing or cooperation. They are identified as a state sponsor of terrorism or a safe haven for terrorists, or they are not in control of their borders.
Venezuela and North Korea are both seen as uncooperative regarding information sharing, but the ban's impact is minimal on both.
Only specific Venezuelan government officials and their families are affected, and just 100 North Koreans were issued non-immigrant visas in 2016.
Critics say the Trump administration is still using religion as a basis for its decisions about which countries are on the list.
President Trump described the restrictions as tough and tailored, needed to protect U.S. security and interest.
Nowhere is America's illegal immigration problem greater than along the U.S. border with Mexico, a 3,200-kilometer dividing line along a river and through the desert. VOA's Catherine Gibson went to the border town of Del Rio, Texas, to see how President Trump's policies are being enforced.
Rio Grande, a river split between 2 countries.
It's very simple to get to the river on the Mexican side. It's very shallow.
Corey Maddox has watched undocumented immigrants try every way possible to cross it.
They'll use rafts, they'll use horses and inner tubes, and they'll just swim.
Most led by smugglers beating well-worn paths down to the river.
And also, you can see on both sides of the river this plant. It's called carizo, and it really helps them out too as far as giving them concealment to cross. Like if you look over there, you see that high point. That gives us a tactical advantage when we're trying to observe. But as you can also see on their side, oftentimes they have the high point, and they'll take advantage of all those opportunities to find a way to cross.
The Rio Grande River separating the U.S. from Mexico is just one of the areas Border Patrol agents go into. They also track drug smugglers in the high desert and perform search and rescue missions in the canyons here surrounding the Pecos River. Canyons and burning desert that work as well as any wall.
It's not a one-size-fits-all border.
Matthew Hudak says the problem of border security can't be solved with a simple fix.
Even with infrastructure, it's still going to be a personnel-intensive area to patrol.
Fencing works well in urban areas, but out in the desert, human eyes and ears work best.
It's not easy work. This is one of the most difficult areas in our area in order to track people.
It's the terrain that changes the debate about a continuous wall, says local law enforcement.
In my county, I don't think that we need a border wall.
Sheriff Joe Frank Martinez says there's no danger here and that President Trump would find a different reality in person.
People need to step foot on the border. People that are talking need to know what they're talking about.
And some Del Rio residents believe Trump does understand that reality.
If the guy has got enough sense to make a $9 billion empire to build a building in downtown New York, he's got enough sense where to build a wall.
Even though Trump's promise of building a continuous wall is still up for debate back in Washington.
We're in a completely different dynamic as a world.
America, I guess to my generation, it's just kind of like a wild card. You know, which direction are we heading?
Traveling for around 21 days in the upper Mississippi River Valley region, I met many interesting people.
Todd Schmitz is my name, and I am a truck driver.
When I was talking to him, I realized how the fear of terrorism is spreading to rural America.
Since I was a kid till now, it's different. When I was a kid, we could go out and play football, baseball, basketball, whatever, the neighbor's house, we didn't think twice about it. You know, we didn't talk about terrorism. We didn't, you know, that wasn't on the back of our mind. Now it's spread out, you know what I'm saying, where it's here. I believe there's ISIS in America today. It's just we don't know who they are. We don't know where they are. They could just pop up at hospitals or bars like they did down in Florida or in California. Just, you know, I just hate to say it, but that's what's happening, and that's where we are today. It's a different day. There's an apprehension back there thinking, you know, there could be a bomb threat in our school, in our hospital, you know, and we don't need that. That shouldn't be there.
It's a concern that might seem far from the minds of people here in Boscobel, Wisconsin. Americans, by one estimate, are 5 times more likely to be killed by a police officer than a foreign-born terrorist. And much of that violence is in cities. Yet those worries help push efforts to tighten U.S. borders.
Much as we'd love to see more people come here because it is the greatest nation in the world, there's an apprehension there to say, you know, wait a minute, we need to vet these people, find out who they are, where they came from, and what their intent is.
But unlike at the national level, Schmitz has no desire to see blanket bans.
Just be a little more diligent about watching who comes in and out. I mean, majority of the people aren't here to kill me and my family or people, you know, Americans.
He would be happy to see laws already in place to be better enforced.
Also in place is a ban on refugees entering the United States, unless they have a relative already legally living in the U.S. So far in fiscal year 2017, 52,282 refugees entered the U.S., about 40% fewer than entered in fiscal year 2016. Of those refugees, 6,532 came from Syria this year, almost half the number that came from Syria to the U.S. last year.
This is Syria, capital Damascus. And this is Idlib province. A small shop in the town of Khan Shakun, and meet 29-year-old shop owner Abdel Hamid Al-Yusuf. Hi! Each day, Abdel Hamid would open his shop to provide for his wife and family, including twin babies, Aya and Ahmad. Before dawn on April 4th, Abdel Hamid and his family were asleep. They woke up to the sound of a blast next to their house. Smoke was everywhere. Hamid's uncle Al-Yusuf ran out to see. A woman walking nearby suddenly collapsed. The uncle knew something was wrong. He rushed back inside and closed his windows. The wind blew the smoke away from their house. But Abdul Hamid's family had a different fate. He fled his house with his wife and twins to find a safe haven. Aya and Ahmed were conscious at first, but soon they began shaking and struggling to breathe. Abdul Hamid carried them outside. They fell sick. Abdul Hamid took them to paramedics, hoping Aya and Ahmed would be okay. Hamid went to find his extended family. Instead, he found the bodies of 2 of his brothers, 2 nephews, a niece, as well as neighbors and friends. Those who were still alive were shivering. A yellowish foam was coming from their mouths. Their bodies were turning blue. Kids fell unconscious sooner. Doctors said they were the most vulnerable. Finally, Abdel Hamid received the news he didn't want to hear. Relatives said his children and wife had suffocated from the gas. They were dead. The twins looked like they were just sleeping. Abdel Hamid hugged his children for the last time before burying them. The heartbroken father spoke to his daughter at the graveside. "I used to say, my beautiful blonde girl, I would never leave you. My beautiful daughter, you are leaving me alone."
Next on VOA Weekly, drilling through Greenland's ice pack in search of clues to climate change.
My name is Eva Marcan. I started working at VOA in 1998. We're originally from former Yugoslavia, so we moved to America right when the war started. In 91, when I came here, in class I would always spend a lot of time doodling with wall art, graffiti. It opened up the door to exploration for a teenager. But you can definitely come out and do a piece like this or do a piece like this, and it would be recognized. And you also tell a story through it. I connect art with journalism because it's a story that changes. And it's not just a view, it's not just a personal perspective, it's a story. And it's a story to be told. And that's it.
I'm Jim Malone, and I work the political beat. I cover what drives the political issues in the United States, what voters think, what drives the candidates, how public opinion shifts on one issue or another. It keeps you in touch with the American people and where they want the country to go. It's a great way to get a window on what's happening in the United States. I'm Jim Malone, and my beat is U.S. politics.
One of the hottest debate topics in the United States is over climate change and whether human activity is primarily responsible for global warming.
One side says burning fossil fuels is increasing greenhouse gas levels, warming the earth and causing everything from severe storms to melting ice caps.
The other side says greenhouse gas emissions are too small to change the climate, and the planet's forests, oceans, and earth are well equipped to absorb these emissions. Clues to what's happening may be found deep beneath the ice in Greenland, which is where we sent VOA's Steve Baragona.
We're here to drill an ice core to the bedrock. Minus 28 in there, and just come in and look to your right, you'll see an ice core, I think. Yeah. So this ice comes from 754 meters down, and it's on the order of 6,000 years old. The snow that we're getting in this ice core didn't fall at this spot because this is an ice stream that's moving. So this snow fell some hundreds of kilometers away from here. It's moved to this spot. At this depth, we can still see 1 year to the next, to the next, to the next. So when we study the climate, we're actually getting information for every year. So we get the seasonal signals in dust and water isotopes and other impurities that tell us about atmospheric circulation. They tell us about the temperature. They tell us about processes in the ocean. And then the bubbles will give us the concentrations of constituents of the atmosphere: methane, carbon dioxide, nitrous oxide.
So we are pulling these cores out, and the bubbles have 60 times atmospheric pressure. Then the ice can't hold it, so it becomes explosive. So it starts to crack on the table spontaneously, and all the gases escape.
And as a driller and scientist, it kind of breaks your heart when you do all this. You get these beautiful cylinders up, you put it on the table, and then it starts to just pop, 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 pop. You can hear it like Rice Krispies.
And that's what we call a brittle zone. And it's really, really terrible as a glaciologist to watch this perfect core disintegrate in front of your eyes. So we actually, and it sounds completely ridiculous and backwards, but actually we mounted a freezer unit in a snow cave inside the Greenland ice sheet. And that's simply to control the temperature. We say, everybody would say, oh, it must be cold in there. Yes, but it's not cold enough, so we are putting a freezer inside the ice sheet. And that's hilarious. But anyway, so we know that Greenland now is shrinking because there's enhanced melting around the sides. Very easy to understand because it corresponds to rising temperatures at the coastline. So you'll have much more runoff. And that will make the Greenland ice sheet lose mass. So right now, I think the contribution of Greenland ice sheet to world sea level change is just beginning to show, but we don't know if this shrinking is going to be a linear, straightforward process that you can predict. And that's why we are drilling at East Grip. You can monitor the surface. Trouble is, all kinds of funny stuff is going on at the base of the ice sheet. If something odd is going on at the base in these ice streams, and there are a lot of ice streams in Western Antarctica too, then it can upset the entire apple cart. All of a sudden you would have an unstable ice sheet that might break away, not over several centuries, but over a couple of decades. And that would be disastrous.
This is carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide acts like an invisible blanket around the planet. We're adding CO2 to the air by burning gasoline, coal, and natural gas in our cars, trucks, planes, ships, factories, and power plants. Here's the problem. When sunlight hits the Earth's surface, the surface gets warm. Normally, that heat radiates into space. But carbon dioxide absorbs heat, trapping it in the atmosphere. More carbon dioxide traps more heat. That extra heat turns up the volume on the weather.
So, who is right? Is human activity the primary cause of climate change?
Many who say humans are primarily responsible claim that carbon dioxide increased in the 20th century faster than natural climate change could produce.
But others point to climate records that show warming happens before a rise in carbon dioxide, not after. The pro side says natural changes in the sun's activity cannot explain global warming.
The con side claims global warming and cooling are primarily caused by changes in the sun's heat. Pros claim global warming is causing Arctic ice to melt faster than normal, while the other side says the rate of global warming has slowed despite an increase in carbon dioxide.
One side says more frequent, intense storms are the result of human-caused global warming. The other side says extreme weather is the result of natural weather patterns.
Coming up on this edition of VOA Weekly, empowering girls by giving them superhero role models.
I'm Jeff Selden, and I work the National Security Beat. National Security Beat is anything that affects the national security of the United States, from counterterrorism to surveillance to even relations with Russia. It's one of the most fascinating beats you can have. It's probably one of the more important beats that you can cover because it touches on so many areas of the world, so many areas of people's day-to-day lives. I'm Jeff Selden, and my beat is national security.
I'm Roger Muntu. I've been a VOA for about 4 years. First of all, I wanted to become a broadcaster. That was the idea. But my parents, where I was growing up in the DRC, thought that that was not a good idea because it was not a well-paid job. When I came to the US, I was like, you know what? Now I'm living here on my own, so I can do whatever I want. The only way for me to get to broadcasting is to start by building my own studio. I loved music since I was a kid. Creating my own stuff is like building your own house. I did some acting in high school. So my acting came back and they started calling me to audition me, which I went and auditioned. They're like, oh my God, you're an actor. At VOA, I do radio, but I also do TV. We deal with social issues. We debate a subject every week. People in different countries in Africa can call and express their opinion. VOA really humbles me. It gives me a sense of understanding the world in that one building. You can't get that anywhere.
English has some strange phrases and sayings as words get strung together to create a new meaning. We'll try to explain by serving up a word salad.
Some political jargon used in the US can be pretty obscure and hard to figure out. Well, not this one. That's because the expression is inside the Beltway. And this is the Beltway. The Capital Beltway, officially designated Interstate 495, is a 64-mile superhighway that rings Washington, D.C. and several close-in suburbs. It was completed in 1964. Although if you ask most drivers, they'll probably tell you it seems like construction never really finished. Like in many cities around the world, the circular Beltway was supposed to lessen traffic jams, and in Washington's case, provide routes for transporting military equipment in case of a national emergency. Good luck with that. These days, it looks more like a parking lot. But the Beltway did more than just give commuters something to complain about. It also became the perfect metaphor for this decades-long feeling around the country that lawmakers and power brokers in Washington, D.C. are completely disconnected from the needs of the rest of the nation. This is Washington, D.C., and this is the Beltway. Everything in here is inside the Beltway. Everything else, basically the rest of the entire nation, is outside the Beltway. It's easy to see how those inside the Beltway seem literally cut off from everything else. Politicians have been running against the evils of Washington, D.C. ever since it became the nation's capital, which is ironic considering how many of them spend so much money and time to get elected and just stay here. Cheating politicians, wealthy lobbies, connected contractors, or self-serving media. Saying someone is inside the Beltway is just another way of saying they are part of the problem, not the solution, and need to go. In any case, if you want an effective campaign attack in American politics, all you have to do is say that your opponent is inside the Beltway, and everyone will know exactly what you mean.
My name's Carla Babb, and I work the Pentagon beat. That access helps me to do better stories. Every day it's my responsibility to collect all of the defense news. It keeps our VOA viewers informed. I get to travel all across the globe. Anything that's defense related and how to protect and keep people safe, that's where I'll go. So it's never a dull moment at the Pentagon. My name is Carla Babb. This is my beat.
My name is Selin Suerünlü. I've been at VOA for more than 6 years. Motorcycling is not just a hobby for me, it's a passion because I feel freedom when I'm riding, free from all of the thoughts, all the negative thoughts. It's like therapy. I got into biking like 12 years ago. It was all of a sudden because we were thinking of launching some blogs. It was a crazy, wild idea at first. I kind of managed to build a large audience who are motorcycle enthusiasts in Turkey, and now there are thousands and thousands of fans. They like to see the two personas of me. I mean, the anchor on air and also the biker girl on the motorcycle. The freedom I feel when I'm riding really ties into the freedom to report on VOA because of the fact that there's no censorship. And you can report about anything. You're unbiased and it's like the freedom that you cannot find anywhere else.
American entrepreneur Walt Disney pioneered the art of animation, making it into a storytelling and visual entertainment medium, bringing pleasure and information to people of all ages everywhere in the world.
And one Ethiopian woman is using animation to empower girls to be in charge of their own lives.
Brooke Dawita Gabu is the creator of Tibeb Girls, the first animation in which Ethiopian girls play not only the lead characters, but are portrayed as superheroes.
Most of the issues we're raising are not well discussed in the community or in a school or where it needs to be in the house. That could be from early marriage to a basic natural phenomena like menstruation. These issues are very important to be discussed and well exposed at the right age. So that's why this is one of our inspiration to do it.
ሀና እባላለሁ። በዚህ ሰዓት የጥበብ ለባሾችን ድጋፍ ካላገኘሁ በጣም እጎዳለሁ።
The main actors are girls, but they have supportive actors like boys and fathers and grandfathers. So there are characters, but the only difference is that it's told from the girl's perspective, and the heroes and the savers are in this case are girls.
ቅርብ ጊዜ ወዲህ በመንደራችን ውስጥ ያሉ ሴቶች ምንም አይነት ችግር ሲገጥማቸው ሶስት ጥበብ ለባሾች
So what we do is we try to include everybody, like the relevant stakeholders, government bureaus, the specific target groups, and then once the synopsis is developed, we do prototyping, which means we go to the field and test it.
ሊያስቆማቸው ይችላል።
For me, it was very important that to have, girls who look like me and who look like my child to be on the screen playing very good role model.
እዚህ ሶስት ሴቶች አንድ ላይ ሲመጡ ኃይላቸው እጥፍ ድርብ በመሆን
We want to reach as many boys and girls as possible, and for that, in Ethiopia we use Amharic language. It's the official language. But for other African countries, there are many broadcasters who use English and French as broadcasting media. So for that purpose, we are doing the show in three languages.
ከፍተኛ የሆነ ፍጥነትና ጥንካሬ አላት። ትንቢተኛዋ ሴት እሷ ደግሞ የወደፊቱን የማየት ችሎታ አላት።
I needed to create something that powerful, that every child can relate to it, at the same time can want to become as well. So for me, my main inspiration is that really create a wonderful world for girls and boys where they're equally treated and get equal opportunity.
Next week on VOA Weekly, Korean Americans transform a New Jersey town that was best known as a playground for suburban America.
You can follow VOA Weekly on Twitter at VOA_weekly. Find and like VOA Weekly on Facebook and subscribe to VOA Weekly on YouTube. Thanks for watching.